Welcome to Terrifying Tales, the channel dedicated to bringing you original horror stories. Please support the channel by hitting the like button or leaving a comment, and please consider subscribing to the channel by hitting the subscribe button on the bottom right hand corner of the screen. Prefer to read yourself? A written version of the story is available to read on Substack, and the link's in the description. A Sister's Calling by C.J. Knight. 6 months ago did nothing to dull the edge of Eleanor's nightmares. They grew sharper, more vivid in their capacity to eviscerate any glimmer of hope. When her phone rang, she was sitting on the couch with her laptop open, trying to draft an email, a feeble attempt to prove that she could still function. Eleanor stared at the phone screen, a name she never expected to see. Melissa, her sister. No one had seen or heard from Melissa in 6 weeks. Her finger trembled as she touched the screen to answer. "Elle, I'm alive. I'm at the cabin. Please come and get me. I can't explain, but you have to come alone." The call ended before Eleanor could respond. The salty taste of tears touched her lips. Her sister was alive. The voice on the other end of the phone, no more than a whisper, but unmistakably Melissa. 6 weeks ago, Melissa vanished from the secluded Airbnb, a place that seemed so innocuous when they booked it. A cosy log cabin nestled in the trees, the listing claimed. Perfect for a quiet long weekend. They arrived on a Friday afternoon. By Saturday morning, Melissa was gone. With no signs of a struggle, no footprints in the snow, no forced entry. Eleanor never forgave herself for sleeping through the night, dreaming peacefully while her sister vanished. The police spent weeks in the snow searching the forest, dragging the lake behind the cabin, questioning the neighbours who lived miles away. Finally, the police told her what she'd feared from the beginning. The odds of Melissa wandering off and surviving in the snow for a night were slim, and after a few days, non-existent. Eleanor never accepted that her sister simply wandered off and vanished without a trace. Despite everyone telling her Melissa was gone, Eleanor refused to give up. And now the phone call. She considered calling Detective Freeman, the only officer who treated her like a person rather than a hysterical nuisance. But the call was clear. "You have to come alone." Eleanor started packing. By dusk she was on the road, driving her SUV through the pines. On the passenger seat was her rifle. Melissa told her to come alone, but something told Eleanor to bring it just in case. After a time, the endless trees lining the road became more familiar than Eleanor cared to admit. She no longer needed the directions from the GPS. As she turned onto the gravel entry road of the cabin, her heart seemed to rise in her chest until she felt the beats at the back of her throat. The trees were closer to the road, as if sensing her presence and reaching out to grab her. Then the headlights caught the small clearing of the settled snow. In the centre sat the cabin. It was just as she remembered it. Boards grey from the weather, the porch sagging toward the snow beneath. Windows shuttered with one dangling from a single rusted hinge. Eleanor cut the engine and switched off the headlights. The moon was out tonight. It gave the cabin an eerie look as the light reacted with the grey wood. Unease filled her, causing the hairs on her neck to stand on end. It was the quiet. She'd forgotten until this moment. But it was this way 6 weeks earlier, when she'd arrived with Melissa. Even in the snow, she'd expected to hear sounds of nature, or the rustle of the pines in the breeze. But tonight, just like then, complete silence. For a long time Eleanor sat there, gripping the steering wheel so tightly her knuckles went white. What if this were a prank? What if she'd imagined the phone call? She checked her phone. No new calls or messages. But there in the call logs, the phone call from her sister. Eleanor stepped out of the car. The chill hit her immediately, sinking through her jacket. Eleanor reached across the front seat and grabbed her rifle. She slung it over her shoulder by the strap. Her boots crunched in the fallen snow as she struggled toward the cabin. The old wooden emergency equipment box sat by the front door. As she climbed the porch steps, she remembered the last time she stood at this spot, screaming Melissa's name into the trees. Eleanor gripped the doorknob. Her hand trembled as she turned. Unlocked. Inside, the air was stale, thick with the smell of damp. The cabin's flashlights were on the shelf by the front door, right where they were last time. She flicked one on and swept the beam across the living room. Same sofa, same cheap coffee table, same kitchen beyond the archway. 2 enamel mugs with matching plates on the countertop. No one had been here for a while. Eleanor swallowed against the rising bile in her throat. Melissa? Suffocating silence pressed back into the darkness. Melissa? She called again, louder. Nothing. She moved deeper into the cabin, past the kitchen and down the short hallway. There were only 2 bedrooms. The room she'd slept in was on the right. On the left, the room Melissa used. The door was ajar. Eleanor pushed it open. The rusted hinges groaned in protest. She panned the torch beam across the room. Dust particles danced in the light. The bed was made, and the room was empty. Eleanor slumped onto the end of the bed. Tears welled in her eyes. She took out her phone and dialed Melissa's number. Her heart jumped as the sound of Melissa's ringtone melodically crawled down the hallway from the front of the cabin. Eleanor? The whispered voice carried over the sound of the ringtone. Eleanor jumped up from the bed and edged to the hallway. At the end of the hallway, through the glass panel of the cabin door, stood a figure bathed in shadow. You came. Alone. Just like I asked. The hushed voice was unmistakably Melissa's, but something in Eleanor told her not to approach. It's good to see you, Eleanor. Let me in, please. I'm so cold, so hungry. Eleanor edged closer. The figure stepped back into the shadows. That's it, Eleanor. I've missed you so much. Let me in. Eleanor lifted the beam of the torch to the glass panel of the door. The nightdress belonged to her sister, a pale pink with white stitching. Eleanor edged closer. The figure stepped back. The torch beam touched the figure's face. Eleanor stopped. It looked like her sister. Same facial features. Tiny kink in her button nose, high cheekbones. But her skin was grey. The same colour as the weathered wood of the cabin. Alive, but dying. Her hair was brown. Not the vibrant dark honey shade it should have been. It was the colour of mud. Her eyes were the worst. Normally emerald, These were black. The smile on the figure's face was wrong. It was too big for the face and held no warmth. It was a smile reserved for knowing a joke no one else was in on. This wasn't Melissa. This was pretending to be Melissa. Eleanor, out of instinct, unslung her rifle. "Where's Melissa?" The tremble in her voice matched the tremble in her body. "What do you mean?" The figure chuckled. "I am Melissa." It was the first time the thing raised its voice above a whisper. It still sounded like her sister, but there was something guttural mixed in, like a demonic duet. "Now let me in." The figure slammed against the door, causing the glass panel to shake in its frame. Eleanor raised the rifle and fired. The shot caused Eleanor's ears to ring, and the muzzle flash forced her eyes closed. Through it all, she heard the glass panel shatter, and the figure cry out with a guttural roar. As her eyes readjusted, the figure was gone from the door. She edged closer. From outside came a faint sob. "Eleanor, what's wrong with you? Why did you shoot me?" Panic and doubt filled her. Had she been wrong? Was it really Melissa? Was her mind playing tricks on her? Had she just shot her own sister? Eleanor crept to the front door and looked out through the shattered panel. She could make out the crumpled form sobbing in the snow below the porch. "Oh God, Melissa!" Eleanor rushed down the porch steps and knelt beside her sister. The crumpled form giggled. Any hint of Melissa's voice vanished. The nightdress dissolved, as did the hair. The grey creature turned to face Eleanor. It knocked the rifle from her hands and grabbed her jacket. The claws in its hand tore through the down lining. It lifted Eleanor from the ground, bringing its face inches from her own. Its mouth opened wide, revealing razor-sharp teeth. The creature let out a deafening roar, covering Eleanor in spit. The smell of decay filled Eleanor's throat like fog. Wind left her lungs as the creature tossed her like a rag doll. Eleanor crashed into the emergency box on the porch. The rotten wood exploded beneath her. Eleanor tried to pick herself up, but the creature was already on top of her, moving faster than anything she'd seen before. "Do you want to know what happened to Melissa?" In one clawed hand, it dangled a silver heart-shaped pendant. Melissa's pendant. "I lured her outside pretending to be you. Then I ate her." The creature's face twisted into a sharp-toothed smile. This was the creature's private joke. It leaned in close, bringing its face all the way down to meet Eleanor's. Its guttural voice changed into Melissa's once more. "And now I'm going to eat you." The creature thrust its claw into Eleanor's thigh. She let out a scream. The creature leaned back and twisted the claw, forcing a second scream from Eleanor. It seemed to enjoy the sound. Eleanor thrashed her arms around, fingers searching for anything. She felt the cylinder and gripped it tight. A signal flare from the emergency box. The creature opened its jaw and brought it down towards Eleanor's face. She popped the cap and drove the lit flare into the creature's eye. It screamed and jumped back. Eleanor picked herself up and fell down the porch steps. She screamed in agony as she put weight on her injured leg to stand. Consciousness threatened to leave her. Her rifle lay in front of her in the snow. She picked it up and turned. The creature tore the flare from its eye socket with a howl of frustration. Eleanor used the rifle to pull herself to her feet. She limped towards the SUV. The sound of the creature hurrying down the porch stairs forced her to move faster. Eleanor leaned her body against her SUV and turned. The creature leapt through the air, claws pulled back. Eleanor lifted the rifle and fired. The creature dropped to the snow. Eleanor limped around to the SUV's driver door and got in. She turned the key and the ignition fired to life. Guttural laughter echoed through the clearing. Eleanor turned on the headlights. The creature stood in front of the SUV, bathed in light. Eleanor saw it truly for the first time. Arms too long for its starving body, punctuated by clawed hands. It was taller than any person. Its head was almost all jaw, all teeth. Grey skin gave it the look of something neither dead nor alive, something caught between the two. In its claws it held Melissa's pendant. Eleanor trembled as rage flooded her body. She slammed her foot down on the accelerator pedal. The front of the SUV slammed into the creature. It howled in pain as it crashed across the snow. The creature floundered in a mangled mess of broken arms and legs. Eleanor opened the driver door and stepped back into the snow. Rage carried her forward as she limped toward the creature, rifle raised, the pain in her leg long forgotten. "Eleanor, please, don't," the creature pleaded, using Melissa's voice. The crack of the rifle silenced it. Blood sprayed the white snow behind its head as the bullet tore through its skull. Eleanor limped forward and snatched Melissa's pendant from its lifeless claw. Back in her SUV, Eleanor hung the pendant from the rearview mirror. She stared once more at the lifeless body of the creature in a red pool of blood and the white snow. She turned hard on the wheel and drove down the gravel toward the main road. Rage filled her once more as she glanced in the rearview mirror. In the pool of blood outside the cabin, the creature was gone. As she turned onto the main road, Eleanor made a silent promise to return and finish the job she started.